Hi, this is John Sarver, and I'm hosting tonight for Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. Thanks to everybody for coming tonight, and I would like to thank our sponsors, the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, Eagle, Harvest Solar, Homeland Solar, Sumter Solar, and Sri Energy. And tonight we have, I think, a very interesting presentation by the founder, the publisher, and the editor of Planet Detroit. Nina is going to kind of tell us all about Planet Detroit. And it's one of the publications that I always read because they have stories there that I really can't find anywhere else. And they're nonprofit, I guess, formed in 2019, I believe,
Yep.
and a small staff, but boy, they cover a lot of issues. And they're basically looking at environment and public health issues in Detroit and Michigan.
hmm
And so please mute yourself until after Nina's presentation is done. And with that, let me pass it on to Nina. Nina, thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here and to uh, present to you. So I'm going to try to make this presentation appear up here for everybody. All right, I think I can see the slides. I can see you guys, and I even can see the chat. So if anybody wants to throw a question my way via the chat, I'll try to answer. Otherwise, we can talk at the end. But thank you so much. So my name is Nina Ignaczak. I am the founder and editor of Planet Detroit. We're a website at planetdetroit.org. We launched in 2019 as a newsletter with the idea of covering the environment through a local lens, something that I hadn't seen a lot of. Um, at the time, there really wasn't that much local environmental coverage. The Free Press had one reporter, the Detroit News didn't have any. Um, a couple other news organizations had one reporter. I think actually over the years, and especially as we've faced flooding and wildfires, smoke, the interest in the environment has increased, and there's been more environmental coverage, which is a good thing because we need more of it. All right, let me see. What do I need to do to advance my slide? Okay, good. So this is who we are. This is our staff. This is us outside of the Green Garage in Midtown, where we have a small office and a co-working space. From left to right, we've got Ethan Bakuli, who focuses on solutions and service journalism. Isabel Tavares, who is a community reporter through Report for America, focusing mainly on Latino communities in Southwest Detroit. That's me there in the middle. Martina Guzman actually just left us, but she's really one of the reasons I started Planet Detroit. I met her back in 2015 when we both were working for WDET, and she really encouraged me to do this. Brian Allnut, he's our kind of workhorse senior reporter. He does a lot of the stories that you'll see on our website, especially around data centers and energy and things like that. And then Dustin Blishak, our managing editor, who joined us a year ago, just almost exactly a year ago. So Brian has been with me since the very beginning when it was just like a kind of a side hustle project. And Dustin and Ethan are the most recent add-ons. And we did bring on somebody um, at the beginning of the year, Ashley Woods, who is helping with developing partnerships and helping me find revenue to keep this whole enterprise going. So our vision is a planet where informed civic action on the environment sustains healthy communities into the future. So, we think about journalism. In a unique way that's maybe different from a lot of other news outlets that have other goals, but our goal really is to not only inform people, but prompt them to do something. So, if you read an article, um, there's kind of a so what at the end of it. Here's who you could contact. Here's where to learn more. Here's what organizations are working on it. And we really feel like that's what sets us apart and maybe takes a step further than traditional media has been willing to go in terms of the function of journalism. We don't tell people what to say. We report on the facts and we report on the civic infrastructure around those facts so that people can understand, what's happening in the system and how they can play a part. And our mission is rooted in Detroit. We're on a mission to drive that informed action by amplifying local voices, holding power accountable, and spotlighting solutions to inspire hope across Michigan and the Great Lakes. And I'll share a little bit more about how we do those things, but I think just in the mission, you can see our geography. We're really rooted in Detroit. That is the center of our focus. But we do cover things that impact, the rest of the state and even the Great Lakes. And so that's kind of the lens and the geography through which we're operating. Why is this something that we do? Environmental health is a challenge that affects all of us, disproportionately often impacts people with lower incomes, concentrated in urban areas, people of color, but not exclusively. Everybody breathes clean air, everybody drinks, or everybody breathes the air, not always clean. Everybody drinks the water. And these are just some of the stories that, go kind of across the gamut of the kinds of things that we cover, including, impacts on things like asthma or energy bills, um, being exposed to potentially hazardous waste, facing issues related to flooding and aging infrastructure. It's kind of a sampling of the types of things. And so I think I mentioned, and our four pillars are really uplifting the community, spotlighting solutions, serving the community, and accountability. I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. In terms of community voices, we have a kind of a signature program called the Neighborhood Reporting Lab, and that's where once a year, and it's going to be opening up actually soon, we recruit people who would like to learn to report on stories coming from their communities. And the idea is training them a little bit on how to write profiles, how to interview people, how to interview the people that know those people, take simple pictures, and really raise up people that are doing things in communities that we would never otherwise learn about. And so these are three examples of stories that have come out of our neighborhood reporting lab. These are people we've had high school students, we've had grandmothers, we've had people in various stages and walks of life that want to learn a new skill and want to, kind of improve their writing and work with us on telling stories. And we work with them even after the cohort, and some of them have gone on to be consistent freelancers for us. So that's one way that, one of the ways that we reach our community and lift up community voices. As far as solutions, it's really important, I think, to us and to our readers that as we report on these issues relating to climate change and energy, that we're also, pointing out where things are going right, where the bright spots are. And so these are just a few of the examples of that kind of reporting. The neighborhood reporters actually do quite a bit of this reporting as well, but these are, grassroots community efforts like clothing swaps. You've probably heard about Ecosphere Organics in New Lab, a program to help address issues of maternal and infant health. And so we make sure that increasingly, any big issue that we talk about, we really try to make sure that we improve people's understandings of the possibilities and of solutions for those issues by reporting on them. And it's not always just highlighting things that work. Sometimes it's reporting on solutions that haven't worked and why they haven't worked and what the shortcomings are. And then accountability journalism, of course, is kind of our bread and butter. And this is where we do investigative reporting. We report on the data. We try to help people understand what's happening, what's going wrong, why, who's responsible. So, some of the bigger stories over the last year or two have to do with the city of Wyandottes water system problems, other kind of water issues, issues around reliability and DTE energy. Grid stability, and lead inspections has been a recurring topic that we've followed for since the very beginning almost. What we're doing about the ongoing issue of exposure to lead paint in Detroit homes and aging homes across Michigan. Let's see. So here's just some of our highlights from last year, some of the things we covered, ongoing coverage of climate issues, um, a lot of coverage of DT energy. That's kind of our top search keyword on our site. We do a lot of coverage of DTE. People are very interested in knowing what DTE is up to. Um, so we've reported on affordability and rate hikes and increasingly on data centers. It almost feels like that's all we're reporting on at the moment. But it's just there's a lot of activity around data centers and people are very interested and concerned about the environmental impacts. We have been reporting in depth about Zug Island. It's, not certainly not a new thing, but there are things happening there, and we'll be publishing a more in-depth report fairly soon about some of the air quality issues, some of which is timely because I think maybe some of you may have read that the Trump administration is changing the rules for EPA where they're not accounting for the health impacts of air pollution when considering regulations possibly going forward. So, these issues are going to continue to be with us. Um, and I think I've talked a little bit about that, a little bit more about our impacts. So our coverage of the lead hazard ordinance change in Detroit brought attention to the delays that are potentially putting children at risk, prompted some community advocacy. Um, our DTE rate hike investigation sparked conversations about energy equity. Reporting on toxic discharges into the Detroit River led to enough public outcry that Michigan regulators um, have put pressure on the company to expedite the cleanup and have been, more transparent around some of the issues around that site. Um, I think, did I go backwards? I did. Okay. As far as some of the impacts of our solutions coverage, people tell us that they've adopted waste reduction practices due to our coverage of sustainable textiles, food waste, recovery efforts. Um, and people have found ways to get involved in their communities by reading these articles. So this year, we're really trying to amp up that aspect of our coverage, and especially around helping people connect with groups in their communities that they may not know about if they want to, connect on a certain issue or learn more about issues locally. So stay tuned for more of that. And really just building a community is a big part of what we're trying to do. People feel very siloed these days and they feel kind of powerless and disconnected. So trying to bring people together, whether it's through in-person community events, whether through our neighborhood reporting lab, these are ways that we try to help people feel that they have a voice and they can connect with others around these issues. Um, And so, for in 2025, we'll be working on expanding our reach, reaching more communities across Michigan, starting a lot with the Detroit suburbs, and then increasingly, a lot of these communities across the state that are being impacted by the data center issue. We'll be holding another neighborhood reporting lab cohort and another summer youth journalism camp, which we did last year in partnership with a group called Detroit Writing Room, where we help train 25 high school students in Detroit in journalism and photography. We'll be focusing more on solutions and finding new ways to grow our support base while deepening engagement. We're looking to relaunch a project called Ask Planet Detroit, which is kind of like a service where people can come to our site or to our platforms and ask a question that a reporter will answer and then could potentially inform our future reporting. Um, so this is how to connect with us. That QR code, if you have your phone with you, will bring you. I think it brings you to our link tree, which is kind of a link of links to connect to our site. We have the biggest thing we would love for people to do is sign up for our email newsletter. We do have an app, so downloading our app on Google Play or Apple, and we actually push stories to it every day. If you don't like to get dinged on your phone, you can turn it off. Following us on social, we do welcome opinion pieces. So if you would like to write an op-ed or an opinion piece about a topic, please get in touch. And then, of course, like we are tonight, please invite us to speak with your group and share more information about the kinds of things um, that we're doing, and then we can learn from you, and we can that will advance our reporting as well. Sending tips to connect at planetdetroit.org. We also have a signal if it's a really confidential tip. We have a tip line on our website. And then, of course, there's ways to support us financially, whether as a donor, an individual member, or as a business member. Um, and I think that's all I have. So, yeah, that's Planet Detroit. I was going to share also um, just our website today. Can everybody see our site? Just do a
Yep.
thumbs up. Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah. So this is what we're covering today. Um we're covering the story about EPA dropping the health cost calculations from the perspective of, what it could mean for a city like Detroit that has a lot of asthma and air quality issues. So, if you click through to that story, you'll read Brian's reporting on the issue. We always include an overview at the top as kind of the too long didn't read. Um, and then at the bottom, you'll see what I was talking about in terms of, um, you know, kind of the next step. So you read this and kind of like, so what? What can you actually do or think or learn more about it? So a summary of why it matters, who's making decisions, how to take action, who to contact. We don't tell you what to say, um, but we think that it's important that people know that they can have a voice in these issues. Couple other things I'll share about our site. You'll see at the top, you'll see that I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida right now because I'm here for a training. Um, but we have this banner across the top of our site that tracks the local air quality, updates about every hour. So it'll tell you in Detroit. And since I put it up, I knew Detroit's air quality wasn't great, but it really surprises me how often it's, out of the green area when I'm around, especially when I'm in the city. So I think, it helps just help keep people aware of what's happening with air quality. If you click on our issues tab here, these are kind of like our big reporting topics that we report on a lot. So there's whole landing pages for DTE energy, data centers, drinking water, and air quality. And increasingly, we're developing dashboards that create data that people can access. This is a lot of public data that is just not easy to access. And so we create tools for people to see these things more clearly, be able to access the information. So this was a partnership with Safe Water Engineering where we looked at the state's data around lead service line replacement compliance, and we created some maps and some other ways of looking at the data that help people understand sort of, where all of the lead service line replacements are, whether the cities that they live in are compliant or are falling behind, what the lead and copper rule, which is the law that governs that issue. So we have lots of ideas for more of these kinds of dashboards. This one we had, it stopped in 2024 and we have to fix it because the state changed how they reported their air quality violations and it kind of broke our tool. So we have to fix it, but this shows all of the air quality violations. in the state of Michigan within that 6 year period. And you can click on anyone and see, when the last violation notice for that site had been, and you can actually click through to the document. So I'm looking forward to getting this one back up and running because we got a lot of positive feedback on this one. People were really using this. But if any of you have ideas for these, dashboards or any reporting topics that you think, we should be diving into, would love to have a talk about it. I think that's all I wanted to share on the website. But this is where all of our reporting is. You can see here we have an op-ed column of what we call it voices, um, where often experts or citizens will share their opinion. They'll draft something. They're fairly short, around 600 to 800 words, and our editors will work with them to try to shape it and make sure that it's readable and that it's clear and coherent, and then any facts that are stated are fact checked and that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, that's Planet Detroit. I'm happy to take any questions or hear any feedback or any ideas for, where you think we ought to go next in our
Yeah,
reporting.
yeah, Nina, can you? What do you think some of the big stories might be in 2026?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Look in your crystal ball. Now I know sometimes things come up and you're kind of like, "Whoa, I didn't expect that."
Yeah,
But
well, I think, certainly the data center issue is sort of front and center. I mean, it's such a just huge, massive issue in terms of the potential environmental impacts. And, even though in Michigan we have a fairly good, framework compared to other states in terms of some of the legislation that would require, at least for those data centers that would be getting tax incentives from the state, um, some guardrails around potential, costs, um, making sure that the costs don't get shifted onto ratepayers. There's certainly no, um, the proof's going to be in the pudding with that. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. And there's really not been much talk about water use and what the water impacts are. So as these data centers continue to roll through and as communities continue to, local governments continue to kind of be at the forefront of receiving, these proposals and making decisions based on whatever's in their local zoning. That's going to continue to be really important. I think a lot of these local governments were a bit blindsided that it was kind of like a blitz of data center proposals that really came within a short time frame, without a lot of warning. And so they're kind of scrambling to try to figure out, how to deal with them without getting sued, and how to, what to do. And what you're seeing right now is a lot of moratoriums, which is, kind of a blunt tool that municipalities have to just put these proposals on a shelf till they can figure out, what to do. Um, other things we're looking at, we know that related to energy, at least, DTE is going for its IRP, Integrated Resource Plan. Um, this year, there's also a rate case, and so we'll be following the MPSC. I think one interesting uh, thing politically this year will be the extent to which the elections kind of interact with with people's dissatisfaction over the data centers and frustration with the Michigan Public Service Commission. We saw recently one of the Republican candidates put forth his plan for data centers, and really calling for like a reform of the MPSC. Interestingly, it's kind of this whole data center issue has been one of the rare issues, I think, where you're seeing just a lot of common ground between both sides of the political spectrum. So I think that's going to be really interesting to follow. As far as air quality goes, the state just or the state has been, trying to move towards compliance for things like ozone and PM 2.5. And we were recently potentially put back out of out of compliance for ozone due to a rate case, or sorry, due to a it's been a long week, so I'm a little bit stumbling on my words. Due to a court case that the Sierra Club brought against the EPA, that basically kind of negated our move into compliance for ozone. So, how that's going to fare against, some of these new regulatory rollbacks that the Trump administration is now trying to put forth regarding changing how we're considering air quality, that's going to be a big issue. And so those are just, some of the issues. As far as water goes, the money for affordable water support in Detroit is kind of running out. And so I think that's going to be an issue that's going to crop up again this year. Um, those are just a few that come to the top of my head, but I'm probably not thinking of all of them right now.
Yeah, I see Marcia raised her hand. Go ahead, Marcia.
Yes, I thank you for your presentation. I read an article recently which I thought was quite interesting about the amount of energy and how we could find it for the data center use.
Mm,
Uh, and that article, I think it was from RMI, it explained that we, and this is, I think, something that people don't really always think about. Uh, Utility companies make enough energy to meet the peak demand on a regular basis, even though they don't need all that energy. And they have the ability to make it, and sometimes they do. And it doesn't always get used, but you're paying for it. I mean, everybody's
mhm,
paying for it. And there's enough of it, according to this person who wrote the article, there's enough of it to cover the needs of data companies in this country. All we
mm,
have to do is get them to not use quite as much during the real peak times, which are very infrequent.
mhm,
So they may become more frequent, I don't know. But but the impetus for utility companies in Michigan is they want to build more plants because they get reimbursed for their costs of building it, plus a promised amount of profit,
right, right,
which
right. Yeah.
somebody told me was 10%, which is pretty
The
nice.
rate, yeah, their rate, the guaranteed rate of return.
And people don't know this. They don't realize that this is the situation. And I really think we need a lot of public education going on about how these utility companies make their money, how they determine, how they get promised that they can make it by public service commissions. And I really think it's something that is really needs to be looked at. And this is a perfect opportunity now to do it because of the data center push.
Agreed. Yeah. I haven't not read that article. I certainly can't speak to what that person was proposing. I know RMI has been, and a lot of kind of think tanks and foundations are really trying to find the positives and the potential of, how can this work without just completely blowing our clean energy goals out of the water. But when you look at the scale and scope of the quantity of energy that um, even the data centers that are kind of like known to be in the pipeline in Michigan, it's such a massive amount of energy that it's hard to imagine how they could all be built without some kind of increase in gas plants. And so that's that's what we're sort of trying to figure out is, what is that going to look like for Michigan?
It takes an awful long time to build those plants.
Yeah, it does.
And I mean, it's much quicker to put up a wind generator or solar panels.
Yeah. And so I mean that's kind of where the division is though. I think there's a lot of, people they don't want data centers and they don't want solar panels on the farmland. So it's like
They can put
um
solar panels on the data centers.
that's
The
what I
data
yeah,
centers
that's
have
what I'm sort of
huge
confused about
roofs.
too.
They should,
Um, as far as like education around how, utilities work and how the MPSC works, that's something that we worked on early on. We put together some, just sort of explainer guides about, your energy bill and how your water utility works, how your energy utility works. And that's something that we're looking to kind of resurrect this year and bring back to the fore because I think there's a lot of basic public education that we, as journalists can do while we're also reporting the news.
I hope so.
Nina,
I think
if you
that's
if you have a question, just I can't see everybody on the screen, so raise your virtual hand. Down below, you should be able to see a command. Oh, there. Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I wonder if you could just tell us about sort of your business model. Are you 100% supported by contributions and memberships, or do you have advertising, or is there anything else?
No, that's why I'm in Florida. I'm part of this group of, media entrepreneur types who are trying to figure out how to make their organization sustainable. Um, no, right now we're about 85% funded by foundations, so philanthropy. So we have grants from organizations like the MacArthur Foundation is our biggest funder. We got a sizable grant last year. We've had other grants from a lot of the Detroit foundations that you might know. We're members of the Institute for Nonprofit News, and they help secure grants for us as well. We're also funded by reader donations, and I recognize a lot of names on this call, so thank you so much for any support that you've ever given us. It's much appreciated. Right now, it's only accounting for about 7% of our budget. And so, we're certainly looking to grow that. We're also looking to grow our business membership, business and organizational membership. So businesses and nonprofits can be what we call impact partners or planet champions. Um, and that's a kind of an annual fee, and then we include them, and they get some visibility opportunities in our newsletter and on our website. So we're looking to grow that as well. And then we do some kind of like consulting, sponsorship, earned revenue types of programs. So our goal is to decrease our reliance on foundations to half of our budget or less, while growing these other streams of revenue. But we're not there yet. So this is a very much a bootstrapped
If you don't mind
organization.
saying, like, what's your annual budget?
Our annual budget right now is around 600,000. So, and that supports, 4.5 basically full-time people.
Hey, Nina, are you fairly unique if you think in terms of the United States, or would I find organizations like yours in a lot of major cities, or are you pretty unique?
We are pretty unique. There are some other outlets that focus on the environment. There's national ones that you've probably heard of, like GRIST or Inside Climate News. And then there are some more local ones that you probably haven't heard of, but they tend to cover different types of geography. So there's one in Rhode Island called Eco RI. Um, there's one in Philly called Green Philly. They kind of focus more on like sustainability, sustainable business. Um, and I know there's one out in the Columbia River Gorge. But it's definitely not something that is kind of a big movement of hyper-local environmental journalism.
And am I right? It seems like you've made a decent push to get uh, community reporters who are, I assume, volunteers, right? Who just volunteer to kind of track local stories and kind of,
Well, the community reporters,
yeah,
when they join our neighborhood reporting lab, they go through a training, and
right.
then we pay them a
Oh, you
stipend
do? Okay.
to deliver when they deliver their story. And then those that continue to freelance for us, we pay them for their work.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea is, to help people understand that, these are skills that you can gain and actually, get paid for. Some of them have gone on to freelance for other publications too. Yeah.
Yeah, that would seem to be a good model for getting local news. That I mean, there's so many local papers now that have gone out of existence. You don't have a lot of local reporters anymore. More
Yeah,
doing locally focused stories, right? So that seems to me,
exactly.
yeah, would be a big, important uh, contribution that Planet Detroit might make. Go ahead, Lexi.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, Nina. It's been so great to hear about Planet Detroit's work. Seems like you're really making all this climate news a lot more accessible. So yeah,
That's
thanks
what we're
again.
hoping for. Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, I'm on staff with GLREA, and we've been doing a lot of writing lately, of course, trying to process everything going on in the clean energy world, especially in Michigan. And I was just curious, like, what type of op-eds you might be looking for, and what the process would be like if any one of us or if our members would like to submit one.
Sure, yeah. So certainly issues that are relevant to our coverage areas. So certainly anything related to energy, solar energy. I've tried to figure out for a while how to incorporate. You guys have a great library of solar stories. I think first person narratives around like what it means to adopt solar would be very interesting to our readers. The process would be just to send me an email. I'll probably loop in Dustin Blichak, our managing editor, and we'll discuss a topic. And they're like typically, like I said, around 600 to 800 words. And then once you would write put a draft together, we'd go through and maybe a couple rounds of edits and making sure that we've got all the facts checked and claims verified and that kind of a thing. So it's a pretty low stress process. And it just, involves reaching out and, sharing ideas. Also happy to chat, with you one-on-one on brainstorming some ideas.
It sounds good. Thank you so much for walking us through that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, other questions, comments, thoughts? Got a quiet group tonight.
Yeah, I guess so. We certainly want to increase our coverage of renewable energy. So if anybody has story ideas, things that they don't understand or want to know more about, or things that other folks, ought to know about, just please let us know. Oh, it looks like we got one
Yeah, go
hand
ahead,
raised.
Phil.
Yes, so I'm sure you're well aware, Detroit is developing these up to 7 solar fields for the city of Detroit municipal electrification. Is this a project you're studying? Because there's a couple of things. It's reclaiming land that was in neighborhoods, having removed a number of blighted houses and then buying out a few more houses. You following what the effect is on the neighborhood of these solar farms that are being proposed and or in developing in Detroit? I think there's one solar farm up and running now, right? Or something like that.
I think they broke ground on it. I don't know if they finalized it. We did quite a bit of reporting on the proposal early on, um, from the neighborhoods' perspectives when they were still selecting which neighborhoods they wanted to go into. Um, and so kind of talked to different neighbors, and I think the concern was, is this really going to be an asset to the neighborhood? Um, will the community benefits that we're talking about really materialize? And what would be the impact on people living there? But since kind of the original neighborhoods were selected and the construction has gone away, we haven't reported on it a lot because there just hasn't been much activity. But I think, like you said, either one of the neighborhoods is complete or is under construction, and so we'll be looking to see what the impact of those are on the community and whether, as well as, what the impact is on the city in terms of, the proposed benefits of reducing the city's utility bills.
And Nina, you may know Diane Van Buren,
Hmm.
and she's on the board of GLREA, and you may
Hmm.
have already covered this story or know about it. She's got an initiative underway to reuse solar panels
I
because
don't know
there's
about
always
it.
been this. What's that?
I do not know about it.
Oh yeah, now that might be an interesting story because there's
Yeah.
an ongoing concern about, what do we do with solar panels at the end of their life? And I think she's and others in the state too. John Kitch comes to mind are working on this idea of if you decommission an older solar panel, it probably still has quite a few years left of useful production.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of trying to become like a broker to, as those panels become available for whatever reason, find a new home for them basically and kind of reuse them. So
Interesting. Yeah,
that's kind of a, yeah.
I would be very interested in learning more about that and understanding if it's, if that concept has been implemented successfully elsewhere.
Yeah, it's a fairly recent initiative on her part, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the industry is also working on trying to make the panels more recyclable because
Yes.
the panels now, as you probably know, are can be hard to take apart and recycle. But I thought that whole angle of reusing them as the next step.
That's very interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, because
absolutely.
eventually then you probably that reused panel has a end of life and you recycle it, but you still get a lot more years hopefully out of it
Mm-hmm.
production. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, other comments, questions folks have. Uh,
Um, I are people able to access the chat? I'd be curious to know, where do you get your local environmental news
oh, that's a good
besides Planet
question.
Sprite? You can just like type it in the chat rather than
Yeah.
taking yourself off mute if you if you want, but um
Well, just to speak from a personal perspective, because I've been, working in the renewable energy field for a long time now, and trying to keep track of environmental news too, because
mhm.
it all kind of relates to each other. But it's a real challenge because there, in some ways, at the national level or even the state level, especially the national level, there's a lot of sources of information. Almost too many to deal with.
Yeah.
And so I think we're always struggling with what's a good source for information because we even we all have limited amount of times to read things.
Right.
But I think you're in a unique position because you have a local niche, which is
Yeah,
really important.
and we do try to curate, we do at least once a week a post that's kind of a roundup of some of the local news that we're reading. Doug, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, what I wanted to let you know is I'm a member of the Sierra Club, that's Southeast Michigan Crossroads
Mhm.
group, and we're heavily involved in environmental, obviously. So um, you can get a lot of good contacts and information through that. That's how I get most of mine. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a matter of fact, I've been kind of jumping between this and that Sierra Club meeting that they've got going on right now for
Yeah.
make polluters pay. So that'd be a good group for you to connect with.
Yeah, we actually just welcomed their executive director to our advisory board, and they gave us an award actually last year for environmental journalism. So we're getting more connected to them. Yeah. And
Yeah,
they've
yeah,
been, at it for a long time, obviously.
yeah, cool. Yeah. Are there other people that can share kind of where they get their energy and environmental information? Hopefully, you are all
Peters is
GLREA
there
members
in
and
Midland.
get
Is it,
John Freeman's newsletter every week,
yeah,
or
absolutely.
once a month, and then his weekly updates. But yeah, what do people have as a good source for, in particular, energy news or renewable energy news? Of course, our newsletter is, of course, very good, but there
It is
may be
very
other
good.
sources. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Any
good.
anybody like to confess, or you get your all your news from these podcasts, right?
Yeah, well,
Or
that's
these
the kind of
videos.
the thing we're struggling with and trying to figure out. We know, especially with the younger generations, that they are on TikTok and or podcasts. Um, and so, we're trying to figure out how to have a presence there without, killing our reporters. So, it's one thing to be a reporter, it's another to be an influencer personality, and so we're trying to figure out how to bridge that gap.
Yeah, GLREA is struggling with that too. And Lexi, who just made a comment earlier, she's been helping us a lot with social media in
Hmm.
trying to reach out. And I don't know, Lexi, do you want to talk a little about the efforts you've been making?
Sure. I mean, I can definitely relate. I feel like TikTok is not really my area of expertise, but we had some summer interns that really helped get the ball going on that. So yeah, just trying to make some educational videos and promote GLREA or clean energy in general on there, and mostly Instagram. I feel like that's a little more my forte with words and pictures and not just videos. But it's
Right.
been good to broaden our audience a little and also get some negative feedback. You win some,
Yep.
you lose some.
All feedback is good feedback. Um, yeah, interesting. So Canary Media, which Midwest Energy News has become a part of, we've been partnering with them for years. And so they do really good work. I'm curious if anybody wants to speak to, I see a lot of a mix of like what I would consider news media sources and nonprofit advocacy groups. And I'm just wondering like how you think about that distinction, because it's something I've always sort of struggled with in defining what Planet Detroit does and doesn't do. Um, do you look at the information that you get from a group like Flow Water Advocates or Green Home Institute or RMI with any differently than you would Canary Media or Wall Street Journal or Planet Detroit? I don't know. That's just a question to anybody who would want to address it.
Well, my perspective is that whether it's a nonprofit or a private company or media, that I'm always trying to figure out how reliable the source is.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
now obviously you can look at with media. Sometimes it's hard to know. I assume that everybody has a certain bias,
Yeah.
and so with media, I assume there's a certain bias, and obviously with advocacy groups and private companies, there's definitely
You know the
a mis
bias. Yeah.
yeah, but you kind of know what it is.
Yeah.
But you go to Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, we're in
Yeah.
the business of promoting renewable energy.
Right.
And so just to use Planet Detroit as an example, I would kind of assume that since you're in the business of kind of looking into environmental and public health issues, that that doesn't necessarily mean you're biased, but you're looking at it from, I just assume, an advocacy perspective. And you were very upfront about that in your presentation, too.
Yeah, I think so. We certainly wouldn't hesitate you know, to criticize or hold accountable an advocacy group or, whoever it is. We're just trying to get to the facts of the matter, but we certainly do think that public health and climate are important, and renewable energy and all these issues are important issues that we really need to be paying attention to. Um, so, I think media as a whole, as part of its just evolution and the chaos that it finds itself, is kind of grappling with these issues of, you know, can we really say that we're unbiased and um, can we change how we do media, be very transparent? And that's why we're really sort of trying to gravitate towards, we're going to be reporting these stories and helping you figure out how you can take action, but kind of the difference between where we would go versus where an advocacy group would go would be, Sierra Club's going to give you a script and a link to send something to a senator or a congressperson. We're not going to do that. Um, but we want to help you understand how the MPSC works and how you can make a comment. I don't have an answer to this question that Paul has about what are chances net metering will be restored to promote private producers. That's a John Richter question, I'm sure. Are you still there,
Here he
John?
comes.
I am. I'm sorry. No.
Any chance we're ever going to see net metering again? That was the question.
Oh boy. I would say that's unlikely without some sort of dramatic shift. There's been a steady erosion of net metering across the country, one state after another. And, Michigan just kind of got robbed because we were one of the last ones to get net metering and then one of the earlier ones to lose it. Um, so, I think that's unlikely as much as we would like to see it. Um, but I think the best thing we can do is fight for better compensation, right, than what we're getting. There was really a very good justification for net metering before we had time of use rates, that kind of went away with time of use. And so, yeah, the short answer is probably not.
It just seems that with all this demand for energy, it seems like there would be a chance that net metering might come back, and you would have private people wanting to I know these energy price. I have net metering, and I got in just I'm grandfathered for 10 years, and I've been in it for 5 years now, and so I'm just wondering at the end I'm going to have to do something different. But I think that there's so much demand for energy, and that they would look at that. I know DTE is looking to build. They're renting warehouses, and they're coming up with a solar program where they install solar and battery storage for a fee. I guess I haven't looked into it that much, but on consumers, their ratepayers' houses, and so it doesn't seem like it'd be that far of a stretch that they would look at net metering. But I don't think the incentives are there for them, but for the homeowner. And if they need a lot of energy, it would seem like they would entertain net metering again. What do you think of that?
Well, as Marcy said earlier, that the utilities make a profit based, and it's a weird thing we do with regulation. The utilities profit is computed from the amount of capital they invest,
Right.
right? So I like to say electric utilities are not in the business of making electricity.
Right.
That's a sideshow. They're in the business of buying equipment, and they make electricity to justify that, right? And so anything that shaves peak load reduces the number of power plants they have to build and therefore reduces their profit potential. So they don't like anything that shaves peak load, even though they pretend they do. And they've got demand
Right.
response programs and all of this, and they make sure they're as ineffective as possible. So no, they hate net metering. They fought it tooth and nail. They actually paid Black ministers in Detroit to come to a public MPSC hearing and say that net metering was rich white suburbanites being subsidized by Black Detroiters, poor Black Detroiters. All right. They paid Black ministers to come to a meeting and say that. So I don't think DTE is going to promote net metering in our lifetimes. How's that?
Well,
Also, I guess I would add, the amount of energy generated by solar panels compared to the amount of energy required by these data centers. Just, I certainly don't have an analysis, but from what I understand, it's just like gargantuan. So I wonder if that's really
It's not
what's
so much solar
driving.
panels. You can put in enough solar panels, but there's
I
only
mean,
so
on
much roof
homes.
space.
Yeah.
And it costs more per watt if you put it on houses because you've got to, go through permitting and planning and everything on each one versus leasing a farmer's field and putting in 100 megawatts or whatever. But what the utilities miss in that analysis is you're comparing wholesale power connected to the transmission system with retail power connected to the distribution system. And more than half the cost of the electricity that we pay is the distribution system that connects our homes to the grid to get the power from the power plants. And putting it on your roof just shortchanges all of that. And we have tried, but the Public Service Commission will not recognize that cost savings and compensate us for it. And maybe we could do a better job of arguing for it somehow, but it's just so extraordinarily hard to quantify.
Hmm.
Hey, John, the issue was raised by Nina about educating people about the Public Service Commission. You have a lot of contact with the Public Service Commission. Do you have any thoughts about what's a good way to kind of try to educate the public about the Public Service Commission and how they operate?
The problem is getting people interested. Right now, that the rates are going up. I think we've got more interest right now than we've had, probably in my lifetime. Well, at least since the Midland Power Plant, right? Midland Nuclear Plant. So
Boy, that
yeah,
goes way
right.
back.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
old.
I think between data centers and electricity rates, if there's ever a time to get people interested in the MPSC, it's now.
Yep.
Yeah, as far as how to do it, I think I talked to you early on about, I would love to put like a course together, or like a 101 on, MPSC. And we have done like short explainers, but I think there's just so much more we could do to help people
I think
understand.
the core thing goes back to kind of what Marcy was talking about, but with a little more explanation, which is, uh, how do utilities make money? What the current regulatory system gives them very bizarre incentives to do certain things, and they're not well aligned with what we actually want them to do, right? And so I think there is in much of the left this sort of fanciful thought that we can just sort of shame the utilities into behaving better, and they're behaving exactly the way we've incented them to behave. They are doing what corporations are supposed to do and maximize the returns to their shareholders, and it's just
Based on the
much to
rules they've
our
been given.
disadvantage, and we need to change that and stop expecting a miracle.
Here, here.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Totally.
Ron, if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I have a question about Michigan Saves. So I looked at the Connecticut Green Bank, and I asked Michigan Saves whether they have a program similar to that. Have you done any stories about how Michigan Saves operates and what their future plans are?
Yeah, we have done Thursday evening Zooms about Michigan Saves. I don't know if we've done any recently, and they're one of the very first green banks in the United States, and they have a variety of programs. Maybe I should kind of take a look at that too to see when our most recent program was, because boy, they offer some great services. They have a contractor list that's just super, because they do some vetting of contractors, and you can go on their contractor list and put down furnaces, you can put down solar panels, you can put down literally anything related, roofs, and identify contractors in the local area. But then they have all these financing programs. The typical financing programs are through like local banks or credit unions, because they're basically making financing more affordable by being, I guess I'll call it a reserve, so that the banks have some security to make loans, and so it's non-secured loans, which can be very helpful to folks. And then they have a variety of programs related to nonprofits and local governments, and that they've been kind of really kind of trying to do as much as possible.
Yeah,
So
we've done some stories on Michigan Saves, kind of outside of their core business. They had some, I think, programs to put solar on businesses in Detroit, and they had some programs that were trying to get off the ground around using the same financing models to finance lead abatement that I think has not really gotten off the ground. But I too would be interested actually in kind of an update on what their prospects are in the future and how they're changing. There's also a new organization. Have you all heard of the Michigan Energy Hub, I think they're calling themselves. It's based in New Lab in Detroit, and the idea is bringing groups together to just facilitate kind of a roster of projects. I think that's what their goal is. We did a short piece on their launch. I think they're still kind of getting up and running too.
and we did a Thursday evening Zoom on that, so you can find a,
Oh, okay.
presentation on the YouTube channel
Got it.
about their new effort.
Great.
Yeah. Well, it's 8 o'clock. So, Nina, thank you very much. This has been a really
Yeah,
interesting presentation. I appreciate you taking the time to kind of share what you've been up to. And
absolutely.
thanks to everybody for coming.
Yep,
And
that's what she
let's
Good.
see, next week, Dave Strensky from Ypsilanti is going to kind of give us an update on his various efforts. And they try to get a low income program going there, but I think they're having some real problems with the federal funding being clawed back. But Dave is going to join us next week, and the week after we're having a presentation about the sustainable energy utility that Ann Arbor is putting together. The executive director is going to kind of give us an update on that program, which is it's a super concept. And boy, if anybody can pull it off, it's Ann Arbor. So yeah, think about joining us for sure for the next 2 weeks. And again, everybody, thanks for coming, and I
Thank
hope
you,
to see
John.
you soon. Nina,
you.
thanks again. Take care.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye.